Foxes. I like them. They've been the brand of this channel for a very long time. And Tingyun and Yukong are all foxes. Now, I'm not here to talk about the design, but Yukong, in my opinion, does have a better design than Tingyun. Just the ears are a little bit shorter and the tail is less giant. But you know what? Outside of that, I'm going to tell you if she's worth building. If she's not, and realistically speaking, if you're short on resources, which most people are, should you build her over somebody like Tingyun? My Yukong is E0. She's using Carve the Moon, Weave the Clouds. I did previously have Dance, Dance, Dance on her, and then obviously there's the F2P paths in future, and of course the other ones. But we're just here to talk about her as a unit. Regardless of Light Cone, because these can be flexed around with any different Harmony characters, even Asta, I do think she's in a different position. Let's go into a actual battle to show you. As an example team here, we have Seele as the main DPS. Tingyun here, she is essentially another support. Since we're comparing her to Yukong, I kind of want to have both of them on the same team, and then Bailu's here to keep us alive. Techniques aside, but I feel like it's important to mention, Tingyun's technique is incredibly useful just for getting that burst up, especially if your main DPS doesn't have theirs up already. Now, one of the things I want to compare, just bluntly, is that if we're talking about Tingyun and Yukong, yes, I understand Yukong does give crit, and crit is an extraordinarily valuable stat, and she does give 65 attack. The issue is her duration. Tingyun's buff with her skill lasts 3 full turns. This means that not only is it's not 3 actions, it's 3 full turns, and there's a clear difference between them. What it means is that if I were to buff Seele here, Seele goes first, then Tingyun, then Yukong, then Bailu. That entire rotation is 1 turn, meaning that the next time it gets around to Seele, in that instance, after the turn timer ends, she still has the buff. It's why Tingyun goes skill, basic, 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 skill again. Because you need to keep that buff up consistently, but the main reason you're using it is just for benediction. Outside of this, the ultimate in the 50 energy is another benefit and bonus to your character. Yukong does not have that. Yukong has a couple issues I want to bring up. First and foremost is, depending on the character you're using, in this instance it's Seele, your skill point economy may be pretty bad. And the reasoning for this is, she has a, in my opinion at least, tighter duration of buff than Tingyun. Because Tingyun is skill, basic, 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 and then ult, or however you choose to organize it, you have a bit more flexibility. But regardless of that flexibility, one of the things I want to mention is that Tingyun's buff is just that. It is a buff that you need regardless, and if you want to use it, you can use it whenever. You don't need to have her skill up. With Yukong, you need to have her skill up in order to use her ultimate and get the maximum bonus out of it. Otherwise, you're just dealing damage, and the damage isn't worth it. And that's kind of an issue, because it means that if you're in a position to where, let's say hypothetically your Seele's on low HP, and you want to use your Bailu, you kind of need to decide what the position is going to be in. Yes, I understand you can use her ult at any point in time. You can save it for when everybody has the ult up, but it's still an issue you need to account for when using skill points, and that's something I think is important to mention, especially for units like Seele, who have a very high skill point usage with their resurgent procs. But in this instance, let's show you. Tingyun buffs my Seele. Tingyun has a 3 stacks at the bottom here of benediction. So I go here, that's 1 action. As you see here, the 3 stacks at the bottom are still remaining. Done. Now I go to Bailu. And let's just say I hit someone with Bailu. That stack isn't gone. Now I go here with Yukong to buff. The attack bonus happens. So she has 2 stacks right now. And as you see, she lost a stack from Tingyun attacking. I understand that you can mitigate this by because ultimates don't take actions. If we're doing here, ultimates do not count as full actions. What this means is I can use my burst on this one enemy, and it won't count as an action, which is nice. The problem is that if you're in a team or position in which your character does have to take multiple actions or uses a lot, you will end up messing over this. So Seele gets around this by using her resurgent procs, but nonetheless, it's still something to consider. And as you see here, now both stacks are lost, and we're not back to that main character. We'll heal Tingyun up a bit, and then we'll wait till Tingyun has her burst up to go again. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to do a full setup. This means that we're using the skill followed into her burst to get the crit rate and crit damage bonus on our Seele. That kills the enemy, but the damage once again is negligible. And as you see here, we have the crit rate, crit damage, and attack bonus from Roaring Boastings. Now, we're going to give this over to Seele just to maximum buff her. And then we're going to Seele. So Seele as a whole has Amidst the Clouds, which is 42% damage bonus, then rolling bowstrings. As you see here, 2 turns remaining for this. This means this damage bonus is lasting, at least from a theoretical standpoint, longer. Everything else, in addition, with benediction and all that, that's just fine. The main point we're comparing here is what Tingyun's ult does compared to what Yukong does. And I'm not saying either one's bad. What I want to compare is the duration and how difficult it is to achieve this. And we're just going to use it on this boss. They're not weak to us, we're just going to use it just as a showcase here. 72,000 damage. My Zila is E2. And we've lost 1 stack. So we go again here. 40,000, done. Resurgence does not proc because the enemy was not killed. And then we've lost both stacks. Now, even though that happened, Amidst the Clouds is still going because it's a 2-turn timer. I understand crit rate and crit damage are valuable statistics. I just don't think Yukong at this very moment is worth building over a Tingyun. I understand both can be great, and if you have the resources, yes, you can build both for separate teams. But depending on the unit, Yukong's buffs aren't necessarily worthwhile. But now for those of you asking why, well, a perfect example is Yanqing. Yanqing is a character who automatically gives himself 19% crit rate and 28% crit damage. And then when he uses his ult, he gives himself 60% crit rate and then 45% crit damage. What you're running into here is a point where this character will reach diminishing returns pretty quickly. Because he's almost at 100% crit rate. And he's almost, well, he's above 100 and like 20 or 150% crit damage. Especially given that because of that, you're running a crit damage body piece. So this is all in addition to his base stats. And whatever light cone you give him. So he's a perfect example of how, yes, high attack and high crit rate and crit damage can be beneficial, but he's also an example of how that can overcap. Yukong is less beneficial for him than it would be for somebody like Zila, because she doesn't have any way to boost her own crits. If you're using Yukong and you want to get the maximum value out of her, you don't want to go for somebody like Yanqing, you want to go for somebody else, like say you're Tingyun, somebody who may not have adequate stats. Or maybe you're running DPS Silverwolf and you really want to boost her damage. Attack percentage is very easy to get. Let me be blunt here. If you're going for attack percent, you can go Space Sitting Station. If you're going for attack percent, you can go, where is it? Fleet of the Ageless for bonus attack. There's a lot of different methods to get attack, but damage percent bonuses, and that is what the main reason a lot of people are running Tingyun is for that damage percent bonus, and the energy is much harder to get. Crit rate and crit damage are usually the most valuable stats, but if your enemy and skill point economy is pretty worthless afterwards, I can't recommend it. She's a good character, she's not worth building over Tingyun. I would say, for order of operations, if you have E2, you can begin to build her more often. At E4, she becomes a bit more of a sub DPS, and at E6, yeah, it helps her circumvent a lot of her issues. But at E0, she's below Tingyun. If you have Eidolons on Tingyun, well, the 20% speed increase, 5 energy, 20% more benediction damage, and then more energy for 60 energy as an ult, that makes Tingyun a much better support in my opinion. So if we're going for order of operations, I would say build up your Asta first because a lot of characters can't really get that speed that they want. Then you can build up Tingyun. And last would be Yukong. Yes, I understand she's imaginary, but a lot of you individuals may not need imaginary right now. And her damage isn't worthwhile enough to justify the lack of skill points. If she had a system like Arlen, in that she was skill point neutral, I could understand, but she's not. And as a result, despite my adoration for foxes, Tingyun's better. At least for now. Once we get to a later point in the game, and people's stats are worth, and people's stats are settled down to a good position overall, I can say she might be better, especially if you're reaching that edge to where you want to get over that 70 to 80% crit ratio. Good, fine, she may have a benefit for you. But for now, with the characters we have who use a lot of skill points, she's just meh. And for the vast majority of DPSs, Yanqing, Silverwolf, and Zila, they always want to use their skill. So if you're in a position to where she needs to use a skill, they need to use their skill, your healer might need to use their skill, you're not in the best position at all. So I would say right now she's too expensive, but later on, maybe she's better. But what about you? Do you use her? Are you intending on using her? Tell me down below. I understand that maybe my build isn't right, but I'm not evaluating her just based on build. I'm evaluating her based on character. And As of right now, she's an incomplete character, at least to me. Either way, if you enjoyed, I'll see you next time, and goodbye.